Falling apart. I think that's going to be the theme. I've tried to make this video, but it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to do. It's very personal stuff. This is one of the reasons why I'm kind of so disappointed with the church, because if I had some, some kind of pastoral care, some possibility of connecting, then surely the church would be the place, but it's just absolutely hostile. There's just nothing. So I saw, when I became a Christian, I guess I was lonely all those years ago. I hadn't been able to connect with any organization. When I became a Christian, I thought to myself, great, finally, I have the opportunity to link up to a community that's worldwide. There's churches all over the place, and I will always feel at home. And of course, nothing could have been further from the truth, as I slowly began to discover. So, that's just a general criticism of the organized church. Has been such a delusion to me. But I've reached a point in my life now where I, basically don't seem to have any reason to carry on living, and it's a sobering thought. I think I've been putting it off for quite a long time and trying to find strategies to overcome, but they're just strategies, and now that I've seen that, they don't seem to work any longer. I reached this conclusion the first time about 2 years ago, when I had a prolonged. I was unwell for quite a long time, and I looked around all the work that I'd done on the house, and I built a workshop and everything that I'd done. I looked at all that, and I just, as in the words of King Solomon in Ecclesiastes, all seemed to be vanity. There was no point in any of it, because of course I was alone, and I am alone, completely alone. So it was just like the ravings of a madman. If I hadn't built a workshop, nobody would care, only me. It was a purely personal, egotistical operation. Nobody was visiting me, and it was just pointless. And it was at that point that a young lady who was coming, or a lady who was coming to do some cleaning here, she started to turn up unexpectedly, sort of not respecting boundaries, I suppose. But I was very grateful, because suddenly I had a companion, I thought. And although I was quite suspicious at first, I allowed myself to kind of get drawn in. She was very nice. I liked her. She was attractive. She was pleasant to be with. And she continued to contact me and invite me here and invite me there. And I was greatly, greatly encouraged. But over the space of about a year or a year and a half, I can't remember exactly how long, so I think I'm exaggerating the time. I think it was probably about a little more than a year ago that I was unwell. So over the space of the year, I began to realise that it was a very one-sided relationship, and I'm quite an empathic person. I think I can see where people are coming from, and I saw that she was shielding some kind of pain, some kind of hurt, and she had other relationships, like the kind of relationship that she was proposing to me, where it was just very, very cold somehow. We would spend time all day together, and then the one time I attempted to embrace her because I felt that I was in an intimate relationship, she spurned me, and she was very critical, you know, and so I felt I was being gaslighted, and I became quite obsessed by the thing, and I just couldn't work out what was going on. It was my own fault to get drawn into something like that. I mean, she's not been the cause of my problems at all, but she alleviated them for a year, shall we say, and then ultimately I had to face the fact of the matter that it wasn't. Once I'd seen that, I couldn't really ignore it any longer. And so my mental health has taken a turn for the worse, basically. Probably never very good. I stopped using cannabis for 2 months, and while initially it was good and I had positive results, in the long term, this depression just started to creep back, and it's become just overwhelming, really, because I can't seem to find any reason or motive to carry on with my life. Everything that all the various strategies that come to my mind just seem to be a question of strategies, nothing more than that. Ways to pass the time until I die, and they lose their appeal in a way. I have my faith. I am a very strong believer in the Bible. I feel that I have a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ, but the world has really disappointed me, and I'd love to have a relationship of some description with somebody, but I just don't have one, and the possibility that that's going to occur seems to be very remote. I don't make friends easily. I'm not a sociable sort of person. I'm a difficult man in many ways. I'm not the sort of person that gets involved in social activities. My sister, who's been very kind and very empathic with me, has suggested that I should join this and join the other, but I've never been, it's never been part of my life to be like that. So I find that I can't really do it. Of course, the church has become, impossible. There's no solace there. The truth movement, likewise, for kind of ideological reasons, I suppose. Being a Christian, I just don't feel that there's anything there for me. And my attempts to bring the word of God have been, not particularly well appreciated, I would say. So my incentive to continue to frequent that environment is low. Also because I think I made quite a fool of myself with this lady, because she attends regularly, and after a while I began to feel quite prickly about the whole thing. I thought, well, I've just made a fool of myself, I'm sure it's very widely known that I'd fallen for this lady. And so yes, the depression has just not lifted at all. It's resisted all attempts to get over it. I've been hopeful that I'd find some way to reset my mental outlook, but I think it's been building for a long time. And then, various things have happened apart from this relationship or non-relationship, as it turned out. I sort of got scammed by some gypsies who came round to fix my roof, and I could see what they were doing. But when they left, I became convinced that they were scoping out the house, and they were going to come back and steal all my stuff out of my workshop. And that evening, I emptied everything out of my workshop and put it in my living room. And then I inscribed the words of, I think it's Exodus 20, chapter, verse 6, on the door of the workshop. And then I contemplated. It gave me 24 hours to look at what I'd done and look at the mess in the house. And I began to realize that these were not the actions of somebody who is mentally stable. There's just no way that, I realized objectively that I was not in a good place. And I bashfully put everything back, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter remains that I'm not in a healthy place, and I can't see any way forward to getting into a healthy place, because I would need to have a relationship of some description, and there's just no chance of that happening. And the solitude has become overwhelming, really. Of course, I have a relationship with Jesus Christ, but that seems to not be sufficient motive to stay in the world. It's the world that upsets me. I don't know. I just haven't got any friends. I had a friend that I used to see from time to time, but again, there was more conflict than anything else with this gentleman. And, I think when I first moved into the house, we were as thick as thieves, but of course I was paying him to do various jobs. And when I no longer had any money to pay him, you can always have friends if you pay them. I suppose this lady as well, I was paying her to come and clean, and I saw nothing wrong with it. But my sister has told me quite rightly, if you have to pay to have somebody to talk to that way, then probably they're not friends at all. And she's right about that. She's a bit more practical than I am. She's in an art group, which she enjoys, and also she has a husband, so she has a relationship. But the solitude for me has just become absolutely overpowering, and I can't seem to find any way out of it. My wife came to visit for a short while, and that just ultimately it just deepened the sense of disconnection, because of course we lived together for 30 years, but I know that there's no possibility of reconnecting to her. The reason that I moved out, the reason that we separated, it was just too difficult. And I have a relationship with my daughter, but I never see her. It's just over WhatsApp, really. And we don't share the same ideas. I have to be careful what I say. And it is a time when people have suggested that I should visit Italy, having lived there for 30 years. I could visit, and I suppose that is true, but I can't seem to find the impetus, the energy to do it. I know there's nothing there for me in a way. My ideas are so far removed from the people that I used to know. I don't think I'll be particularly welcome. And of course, people say, well, you shouldn't talk. My sister criticizes me for talking about, religious ideas or my conspiracy. But that's who I am. Those are the things that I find just so interesting. So if I have to go into a situation where I can't talk about those things, yeah, sure, but it's not really a connection for me. I don't yearn for that. It just seems to me to be a sort of a social convention. If I'm not allowed to speak, it's like going to church. If I have to go to church and I have to pretend that I enjoy the outlook without ever offering my views and engaging in discussion and conversation. I find this just stimulating. I really do. And I used to enjoy that very much with the lady that was coming to help out in the house with me, and with whom I fell in love, I'm afraid. But there you go. But I enjoyed talking to her greatly, although she follows a very different philosophy. But at least it seemed to me that there was a dialogue, and I really enjoyed that. But in the fullness of time, I don't know really whether there was. Maybe it was just, I was just talking to myself. I'm a very vain man. I imagine that people listen to me, but if they have probably any sense, they don't. So yeah, I've come to the end of the end of the rails. I think it's a bit of a sobering thought, but the depression seems to be deepening, and I'm trying to counter it with alcohol and cannabis once again, but that's not going to work really for any length of time. I've got various things, I've got jobs to do around the house and so on and so forth. I spent all yesterday cleaning the patio and sorting out the garden because they're theoretically coming to fix the roof. But, again, it's just money that I haven't got as well to get those things done and to make the house nice, but for a reason that I really can't, I can't seem to perceive. It's just for my own comfort, and I'm comfortable here, alone. I'm comfortable enough, but it's just that I'm fed up of of being alone and having nobody to talk to. And so I joined a dating site, and that was just has been just a series of rejections, one after the other. I'm not really dateable material, I'm not the sort of man that these ladies seem to like. I've got too much weirdness about me probably, and I'm not particularly good looking, actually. So, whereas the women that go on those dating sites often are quite nice looking, So I'm, like with the lady that used to come around here, I'm punching above my weight all the time, and it's just adding to the misery in a way. To have constant rejection. So yeah, that's where I've come to. What does it mean? Well, I just can't see any way forward. I just cannot see any way out, and I think that's been the case for a long time, really. After I moved to England, I had opportunities over the years, but I rejected them. So it's not, I'm not blaming other people. It's my own. I have this personality, and I just have to deal with it. And after my mother and father died, my function really in this country was removed. I had no further function. I don't think my daughter needs me. She's living her own life. I know my wife doesn't need me, and I don't have any friends. So the church doesn't seem to want me for various reasons, and they're probably quite right. So I think it's over and out, as far as I can tell.